Oh,
And we're going to record this because then we, Sylvia and I, go over it for our own reflection. And
of
then
course.
we share it with you as well, for you to see whether you want to go over certain sections or whether it's useful for you. Hmm? So you said, at least in that original document, you stated that you wanted to explore becoming a freelance teacher educator. Tell us about your relationship with teacher education a little bit. How long have you been one? What exactly it means for you?
Okay, yes. So yeah, I suppose I should clarify. So during the How to Mentor course, the idea of what do we, we were asked, what do we want to be mentored on? What can we mentor on? And I thought, okay, what would be useful for me in my current role? My part of my a substantial part of my current role is kind of having overview of the British Council's teacher education offer and looking at that from a point of view of developing it. I took that over from John Shackleton, me and someone else, Ivana uh, Alexic, but Ivana's not as closely involved in the kind of day to day. And so I thought, okay, what would be useful? Because I now have a lot of kind of contact with principally freelance teacher educators, would be for me to become, to be able to understand what, how things are from their, your perspective, and how we can kind of, how I can help make things better, or at least empathize more with the audience, if you like, of the teacher educator from a point of view of what teacher educators need from the courses that we provide, but also what the teacher educators who work on those courses need from the point of view of what works, what doesn't work, what could be better. And I thought the best way of doing that is to get an overall perspective of what it is like to be a freelance teacher educator, from those who are freelance teacher educators like you. So that's the overall picture, really. As far as my experience of being a teacher educator is concerned, is it something that I think rings true with many teacher educators. I didn't train to be a teacher educator. I trained to be an English language teacher. I did a what the equivalent of the CELTA was. I did a master's in English language teaching and educational technology. As a follow up, after working for many years, I became involved in teacher education, if you like, because I was interested in technology.
Mhm.
Ended up sharing that with colleagues, and then I was asked to do in service training at the place where I worked, which is the British Council in Barcelona at the time. I did that. I enjoyed it. I presented at a conference, enjoyed that, and got involved in doing a lot more of that without that kind of teacher training, as in workshops, etc. I designed and delivered courses for local authority teachers through the British Council in Barcelona. So I did sort of summer courses for teachers. So got involved in that, and then I volunteered and did teacher education online courses for TESOL through the
Mhm. Mhm.
annual January Electronic Village Online, etc., and other bits and pieces. And
Yeah.
then various other things have come up
Mhm.
over the years, basically.
Mhm.
And
So,
then eventually, just to finish off, then eventually through becoming, when I worked in Mexico and was regional lead for the British Council, I saw the opportunity of doing the LPACT, and I didn't really do the LPACT. I kind of observed it because we wanted to offer it to teachers in the Americas, and then I did the ACT because I'm a great believer in, if you really want to understand something, you should do it yourself. That brings us
So
up to
very experienced in a number of areas,
but haphazardly,
Graham.
not kind of structured, if
Yeah,
you like,
but
to begin with.
you've spoken about course design, and you've spoken about different kinds of longer, more comprehensive programs for teachers that you've designed. At first, we were wondering whether the emphasis was on teacher education or on going freelance. That is what we didn't understand.
Yeah.
But you seem to be very well established in your role for the British Council. So I suppose this is not going to change in the short run, at least, right? Am I right?
Who knows what the world is changing every day.
Well, okay,
And the
yeah.
British Council is changing, is under change, constant threats of change all the time. I think what I'd like to know, I think it's not clearly defined what I want to know. It's more of a kind of vague aspiration to understand the role of a freelance teacher educator better to help me in my job, but also so I can, as I said, so I can kind of understand better the demands and needs of that audience to be able to help make sure that we do things in the right way, really.
And how would you define teacher educators
Overall, of a
from?
freelance teacher educator, kind of just be absorbed in it, what the worries are. I've worked freelance myself in the past to a certain extent, so I kind of understand that aspect of things. But if anything else that perhaps I'm not aware of, or I can imagine some of the things, but there'll be other things. Sorry, Sylvia, I interrupted you.
And from your experience in coming into contact with teacher educators throughout these programs and experiences, what's your description of the mainstream, let's say, teacher educator, if such a thing exists, or if such a person exists?
Oh, I find it very difficult to. I think there are different categories on there. This is one of the things I'm interested in. I'm trying to kind of get my head around in my current role. So there are, just as there are lots of different types of teachers, there are lots of different types of teacher educators with not only the qualifications or experience they have, but also the, if you like, the audience they cater for. So we have kind of teacher educators who specialize in delivering formal teacher education courses, either for the government, state, or other organizations. People who are working at universities, who are doing CELTA courses, for example. I'm not so interested in that aspect of things because my job concentrates more upon the state sector, primary and secondary education. So it's more, I'm more interested in the kind of teacher educators who the British Council engage with or have as their primary target audience, if you like. So teacher educators who are based anywhere in the world, but quite often in low and middle income countries, or they work in low and middle income countries. They don't particularly work in the private sector, although they could do. But I'm interested in our kind of target, if you like, of teacher educators is those who work in the state sector education. Either they work freelance and are contracted via the British Council, or perhaps that they combine that with an actual role within the state sector education system of a country. Perhaps they're contracted when there's demand. Perhaps they actually have a position. All of that kind of thing. But that's the kind of audience that we have, basically. So those are the kind of teacher educators I'm interested in focusing and knowing more about.
Teacher educators that can have a very direct impact on student learning in state institutions. That would be the target. How do you think you can find out more? What would be a possible instrument or a tool if you could have an audience of those teacher educators, or if you could access those teacher educators you have just described? What
to a certain
sort of
extent,
instrument might get you the information you need?
Yeah, to a certain extent, I do have access to them because that's our community, and our network are full of teacher educators like that. And then we have a WhatsApp teacher educator community that I'm part of, and I can observe. So it's I kind of already have access from an observational point of view of I can see what concerns them. I can see through observing the discussions that are going on, through the webinars that we organize, through other kind of contact, what teacher educators' concerns are. So I have that insight into them, but perhaps there are other things that I'm missing through, I keep an eye on research to a certain extent, but perhaps there are things that I'm not aware of that I could be pointed to that are, I don't kind of fully understand where the interesting research would be. Then and then I had a unknown.
Probably what you can gather is their perceived needs. What you would like to know is their real needs.
Yeah, definitely.
So the research might give you a glimpse into their perceived needs, but in order to plan ahead, you need this other information, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was one side of the question. I mean, what it is that you're after. You said I like this idea of the being vague. So what do you expect then from this experience? I mean, from this short mentoring initiative, and what, that's one part, and then what kind of mentoring would work for you?
So what do I expect? I expect that my insights into this area grows, that I have better insight into the life of a freelance teacher educator or the teacher educator that I've described. So definitely that. I don't have any specific kind of desire to, I don't have any kind of specific goals of I want to know this, because as I said, I'm a little bit vague about it. Just increased knowledge and understanding about teacher educators, if you like. And then how do I want to be mentored, or I'm interested in the other thing is like an increased understanding of mentoring as well, which we all have through doing this, and the different ways of approaching it. And already the idea of having two mentors and one mentee is interesting.
It's kind of unbalanced.
My experience of mentorship, I've been a mentor in the past for a colleague who approached me with a very specific task, and the way that he wanted to be mentored is which I found interesting, but I'd be interested in any other types of approach to this as well, to explore rather than replicate this one. The one that I have experience of. The one I have experience of is he basically set up weekly meetings he was a colleague, so he did in Peru, he did a role and wanted to know more about the kind of things that I was doing as regional lead to help him. And he kind of thought he'd identified certain aspects that he would like to be better on in his job. And he wanted to ask me how I would approach those aspects. So he had a series of topics and shared with me before we met a series of questions around those topics. So one example would be managing people, for example. Managing people, how would you approach a colleague who had a grievance? How would you manage difficult conversations with a colleague who wasn't? How do you motivate someone who doesn't like their job? How do you, I'm inventing these. These weren't, they weren't necessarily the questions he asked.
But not far from
they
reality.
were around that. He said, and then we just met, and I asked him about why he'd chosen those questions. Quite often, they were very confidential conversations. We decided that nothing that we spoke about would be talked about outside of the two of us talking, which was interesting and also liberating. So I was able to kind of speak quite frankly about circumstances that I'd been involved in, and some of them I didn't think had gone particularly well. Others had gone better, and then we were able to kind of share, and he was also able to then share very specific examples of that were behind some of the questions that he wanted to ask and get advice on. So that's an example of me being asked to mentor that I found very rewarding. I think I learned as much as he did during those conversations.
Well, you touched upon it. I think you touched upon two aspects of mentoring that are fundamental. One is the confidentiality. It has to be like that, I guess, for people to actually develop trust and be open about their own needs and their own lacks, and their own and their expected gains. Requires exactly that. What happens in happens in mentoring stays in mentoring sort of approach, and the other one was building this trust. I mean, your colleague when they asked you to for guidance. I mean, they actually trusted your judgment. They trusted your experience. They trusted that you would give them something sound to start or to move on to their next step. So I think that those are sort of two pillars of mentoring. And another one is, as you said, asking questions. Asking questions that spurs and moves on the current situation from, as Silvia was saying, perceived needs contrasted to actual needs, and then these realizations making me try or experiment new ideas, new paths, new strategies. So yeah, this is, I think, fundamental in mentoring. The only difference in this situation from the one you just described is that your colleague approached you, and here somebody said, I mean, our group said, okay, we're going to try this out. So there's a mentor and there's a mentee, and then you think of your expected gain from the mentoring, which is, starting the other way around. So that's why we wanted to explore, I mean, the what it is that we're going to do. I don't know if Sylvia would like to say something about mentoring at this point.
I think that we have covered all the topics.
Yeah.
Point of confidentiality is one of the big issues in mentoring, credibility as well. And the fact that we will be building on what you bring as well. Say it's our experience, it's our knowledge, but also on the basis of your needs. We are trying to uncover your real needs. This has been the purpose, the real purpose of this meeting. We had predicted some needs, which I feel had nothing to do with what you actually brought along. So that this means that we will need to sit down and reframe our approach and our proposal. And then we will come up with, an action plan, a draft, so that we build it together.
And on a more practical note, how I guess you are very busy, so realistically, how much can you devote to this initiative?
This kind of meeting once a week, for example, is fine for me. But for example, the day might change. So next week I'm at a team meeting in London Monday to Thursday, but I'm free on Friday, for example.
Okay.
Otherwise, on a normal week, I would be available. This time is good for me, for example.
And how do you feel about accessing different sort of materials, reading videos? Do you think that would work
Definitely.
for you? Or
yeah, very happy to do that.
Okay, great. Okay, well, I guess we've got a clearer picture now to explore what it is that we would like to propose to you when we meet again. Because this is about collaboration, basically. I mean, we might have an idea, but if it doesn't work for you, then it's no good. So we might come up with some ideas to start discussing, and then you'll see. We'll see where this takes us. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, it sounds fabulous.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you, Graham. And so you'll hear from us shortly. We'll send you the link for the recording, and as a summary of what we've just said, and some key ideas, and a glimpse about how this is going to continue.
Okay, great. Look forward to it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Thanks a lot.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.